Following off from the popularity and ubiquity of Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII is one of the most divisive games in the entire Final Fantasy series. Fans old and new clamor for a remake, remaster, or even some kind of acknowledgement from Square Enix of this complex and immensely unique entry in the Final Fantasy canon. Today we sit with horror and fanfiction writer Micah Rodney, who's done an extraordinary thing. He's written and released the first part of his comprehensive Final Fantasy VIII fan novelization. We can only wonder how the process was to tackle this dense and sometimes baffling game and synthesize it into a palatable and entertaining read. Let's check it out.
So everyone, we're sitting here with Micah Rodney. Micah is, of course, doing a novelization of Final Fantasy VIII, and we just wanted to get you on here and ask you some questions about that, because we both love Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly you.
I do love it. I like it because it's hard to love. That's why.
In our pre-show chat, you mentioned that one of your favorite aspects of Final Fantasy VIII was that it's cheesable.
Which parts of it you think are cheesable? What was that?
Well, from the beginning of Disc 1 to the end of Disc 4. It's everything to do with the junction and draw system and the item refinement. I mean, your first playthrough, you're going to get lost and you're going to stumble as you normally go. But your second or third playthrough, when you know what to do to get your spells early on, it's commonplace now to have high-level third-tier spells, some maybe forbidden magic. And if you're really insane, getting like the Lionheart on Disc 1 is child's play. So, yeah, the game is really... My thing with Final Fantasy VIII is it does a lot of things well, but then puts those things together.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up having some stuff that is a bit easy to abuse.
Yeah, this is true.
But I find myself playing it, I remember playing it like an RPG at first and just trying to level up as fast as possible, and then I realized how bad of an idea that was. Because if you level up and don't junction, it's horrible.
I mean, my first Final Fantasy was 7, and I played 8 right afterwards and tried to play it the same way, and I did not understand the game. I could not understand why I had so much trouble. And I remember years later, I went back and played it, and I said to him, it's like, oh my God, I understand everything. The junction system makes so much sense now.
Yeah, so, I mean, are we cheesing it if we do that? I don't know, but I know I probably agree with you, though. I think that's probably the case.
I'll just say it's the only Final Fantasy where a low-level run is the easier way to play.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're better off keeping yourself at,
the lowest
never
level
leveling
possible.
up. Actually, a lot of people do boss-only runs, and they try to do that, right?
Yeah, because you get no XP from
you
the
get
bosses.
no XP, and then you only get AP, and so it,
level up the summons.
Yeah, as soon as you can get Ankh None, and you don't even need that in some cases because enemies are really easy to just run from. But yeah, you can stay at your starting level basically the entire game.
Nice. Our next question is we're about to publish our because we did KupoCon for a while, and while we were there we were kind of a little afraid to talk about Final Fantasy 15, not because we really disliked it or anything, but because we definitely saw its limitations, and we were worried that, especially because it was one of the best selling of the best selling Final Fantasy games ever, fastest selling, that they would take that as, oh, this is everything that we should do in our future iterations, and so saying that, why do you think there was such an immediate backlash to 8, and then they put out a game like 9 afterwards, which was so stripped down, so basic, and kind of straightforward? Why do you think that there was this immediate backlash, I guess?
Well, there was definitely the argument I hear all the time, which I don't think is entirely fair, of, oh, it's just because 7 was so good that 8 felt like it was lacking. There's certainly truth to that. But I think the bigger problem is just that 8 kind of felt like it was really rushed. It felt like everything that they tried to do. I mean, I love the game, but there's a lot of areas that feel like they're incomplete or broken, especially the game mechanics themselves. And then when they went back to basics of Final Fantasy IX, when they went back and did a love letter to the series, you ended up having 8 being squashed between two titans. It was in a really bad position. And even nowadays, when you have games like 13, games like Final Fantasy II, which are all both really, really limited games.
Right.
I don't think anyone gets more hate than 8 from the fan base. And I think it's partly its own failings and just partly because the others are so good.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. That's bookended there.
Good. What is your favorite Final Fantasy, you think?
I have an answer I've said for years now about that. my personal favorite is Final Fantasy VIII. The one I think objectively is the best is Final Fantasy VI. And I know people are going to look at that and go, those are the first 2 games you played. Yes, I understand that bias. I still think that. I still think 6 just does everything so well. But again, 8's just the one I'm used to, the one I'm most fond of.
Nice. Yeah, that's my favorite as well.
And
yeah. So like I think you and I, we got some similarities there on the kind of Final Fantasy games we like.
Eight was not one of my favorites early on. It has grown.
Yeah, it was my first.
It was.
I mean, well, no, that's a lie. I played 2 and a little bit of 3 first.
The American 2 and 3.
Yeah, the American 2 and 3. Yeah, 4 and 6.
So 4 and 6.
Yeah. But 8 was the first one I finished, and then I went back to 7, and that's why I think I'm like, 7's okay. If 7's good still, but it's
7 was my first. It was my first Final Fantasy and my first real JRPG. So
nice.
Yeah.
Because and we've talked about it with tons of people that I guess that is the deal. Your first one is your favorite. What do you think of? I kind of think about them in sort of like chunks. There's like we were having this conversation yesterday. There's like the golden age of like 1, 2, 3.
The silver age of 4, 5, 6. The bronze age of 7, 8, 9.
And then the modern times.
And then modern times were just 10 and up.
So what would be like your favorite of the modern times? I would say so. Like everything from
10 until now.
10 until now.
First off, I appreciate the reference to comic book timeline there.
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay.
Legit, I get that. Yeah. But personally, for me, I think the best in the series, the golden age for me, it was 4 through 10. I think that's where Final Fantasy was just doing everything right.
Mm-hmm.
Of the modern from 10 and up, 15 was a good entry, actually, I think. It has definitely, don't get me wrong, it has a lot of problems.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of things it could do better.
Yeah, we spent a whole 20-minute thing on it, so it's no, it's really not all the bad things about it. We're just, we have high expectations.
You gotta look at it critically, especially when you come from us and we've played kind of the entire series, and we can look at it as a whole. But I think 15 probably did the most right commercially for the franchise. The one that I actually kind of enjoyed the most, I got to admit, from a gameplay level, 15 definitely, but I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but the one I really like the most is 14. I think I know it's an MMO and it's not like one of the main series, like single player games, but I've played this thing for years and it's the best example of Final Fantasy in the modern age.
Nice.
I can agree with that. Yeah. We're not veteran players and we haven't played in a long time, but we played 14 for a good couple of months.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun with it. It's really good. And if I had the time, if I wasn't playing a million other games, I would totally sink more time into it. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's a love letter to the series. There's so much going on, and I could talk about that for hours, but we'll move on.
Nice.
Much love to my friends on Louis Soir.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I think that we can kind of jump over our question about why Final Fantasy VIII has not had any re-releases then. So,
well, to bring that up,
there's just one thing I want to bring up about that. They did announce, I think it was today or maybe yesterday, that they're doing a tie-in event with Mobius.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. They just announced it.
Okay.
So, because it's the 20th anniversary of that.
Oh, next year. Oh, okay.
Yeah, for the 20th anniversary, they're going to do a tie-in with Mobius.
Okay. So maybe something.
Yeah,
we'll see. So then
a tie-in with a mobile game. That's so great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Welcome to the modern era.
Yes. Ariana Grande's and Brave Exvius, whatever,
You always bring that up. Does that bother you?
Why? Does she even know what Final Fantasy is?
I don't know.
That's your compulsion, man.
That's all good. So I guess let's move over to your novelization. So I kind of went through and read a little bit of your kind of foreword, and kind of talking about kind of how you've kind of taken your time getting through this. What got you started writing in general?
When I was 4, I picked up a pencil and I didn't put it down.
Nice.
I've literally been writing as long as I've been alive. My mom tells me a story, which I think is probably a little bit exaggerated, but she's like, oh, there was a class assignment and you were supposed to just write a sentence and you wrote a whole paragraph and the teacher thought you were going to be an Einstein. And I'm like, Ma, that probably didn't happen the way you said it happened. but whatever. I mean, that's just one thing there, but literally as long as I've been alive, that's what I found the most joy in doing. I love writing stories. I've been doing it since I was a kid. I've been on fanfiction.net for like 10 years.
Wow. I've
got over 100 stories on my profile, and like 5 are worth reading. But I don't know. I always found it a great form of expression, and I just find it really relaxing. It's great escapism.
Excellent, good. What other kind of properties have you written about?
Everything in the Final Fantasy verse, basically. I've done one Wild Arms 3 fan fiction, which I think was okay for the time.
Wild Arms, nice.
This guy loves a lot Wild Arms. Yeah,
I do love Wild Arms.
I've literally have only played 3, but I loved it.
Three's a really good one. It's one of the best.
Oh, it was so good. That I've done a couple of things with Harry Potter. One kind of weird Batman fic about the Joker and Harley, and then there was a few others. I've kind of dabbled in everything in fan fiction. My original stuff nowadays is mostly short horror stories. In fact, I'm releasing a book here in October which is a compilation of my work.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Oh, so you do original work then?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
always got
it. There we go. So what was it called? We went by too fast.
I'm under your bed.
Right, my fault. I'm under your bed. I've been talking about this on my page a lot.
Nice.
This is the horrible plug moment, by the way, guys.
Yeah, like we
take all the time.
We love to help plug things for creators and whatnot. So that's cool.
It's just everything I've written in the past 5 years. 26 stories in total. I love horror. I love creepypastas. I love that entire community.
Oh yeah.
And I started writing it a few years ago, and I've been just doing short stories every couple of months. So.
Excellent. I think horror is on sort of a resurgence here. I think we finally started to find a couple of things that scare people again, because we've movies and everything is kind of like it got real cheesy for a long time, and then now I feel like we're finally discovering what actually is good and scary, other than jump scares.
Yeah.
And the internet really has helped with that. With like every urban legend of the internet, even something gets blown way out of proportion like Slender Man, we're finding that community is kind of bringing back and being way more down to earth with the genre. It's not as much like spooky ghost stuff anymore. It's more like what in the real world creeps us out.
Yeah,
that's pretty great. So then let's get to the nitty gritty of your writing then about Final Fantasy VIII. I don't even know how I would start to think about it, because you would almost have to write an entire book on just like how the world works, for Final Fantasy VIII, because I think it's one of the more complex worlds. But I don't know. Anyway, Squall is a character. He's not really a huge ego-ish kind of character. How do you start writing someone like him?
Whatever.
Sorry. Yeah.
Just like I'll stop here for a few seconds, but dot up here.
Yeah.
The way I've been handling it in the book is to try and fill in the pieces that we're getting whenever he's just not saying anything. The game is good about giving us a lot of his internal monologue, and that's where a lot of his character comes from, because no other game delves into the thoughts of the heroes as much as VIII. I think that's one thing it does better than any other game. But the problem is his motivations aren't always clear, and it's not always told as well as it could be. So I have to admit I'm taking a little literary license and softening him just the tiniest bit to give context to why he is so unattached, to why he's so rigid, to why he's so focused on the duty and not trying to get attached. And the main reason is because he has that fear of abandonment that's been planted in him since Elon left. Mm-hmm. So my prologue of the book is
I was gonna say, like, I like the book ending kind of with the prologue, because it kind of caught me off guard when I started taking a look at it. Yeah, go for it.
And I had to plant that in there because people who are going to read the book and know the game know that scene and they know those lines, but it wasn't Elon who said them. I decided to take the I promise line as something that Elon said to Squall and didn't live up to. That planted that fear of abandonment. And now later in book 3, you're going to have Squall say to Renoa, and he's going to stick by it. So there's going to be a nice little book ending of the plot there, and also kind of a resolution of his arc.
Nice. Cool. Good. How many books do you have planned for it, actually?
4. I have one for each disc,
yes.
But I'm not. Book 4 isn't just going to be disc 4.
Yeah.
I'm
not
planning
just the
on
castle,
cutting.
That's it.
Not so much. Yeah. I mean, I could probably do a lot with that, but it'd be like 50,000 words, and that'd be like. I'm planning on cutting. Book 1 is disc 1. It ends after the assassination attempt. Book 2 is going to be disc 2. Book 3, I'm going to spend a lot of time in Estar and have it cut off probably right after the I promise line.
Okay.
Before they go visit.
That's actually really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because that gives you time to have him deal with Laguna, have his daddy issues, and then time to discuss the ridiculous, I'm dreading talking about this, time compression. So
excellent, good. And I'm going to throw a new question in there. I'm sorry. That
Go
was
for it.
another one I was thinking about. Final Fantasy VIII, when it was originally marketed, was going to be a love story. You know, it was like, this is the Final Fantasy love story. Do you agree with that? After, because like you play through the game and there's definitely those beats. They're all there, and they're cheesy and they're good. But like, is it a love story, or is it a story of warring factions and all that kind of other stuff?
You've just taken me back to space.
Yeah, I know.
It's
all good.
It's scene.
At its core, it is a love story, but at its core, it's also military academy student film and anime school days and might and magic and sorcery and all this stuff. It does blend genres, and I think it does it pretty well. I think it has all those elements put in there. Is the main driving motivation of Squall his love for Renoa? Yes, but I think the story is a lot bigger than just being a love story. I think the love story in 8 is about as important as it was in 9. It's definitely a major factor. I mean, Zidane loves, learns to love Dagger and ends up fighting for her. But before he can do that, he's got to take care of his own stuff. There's an entire great scene in Final Fantasy IX, towards the end of Disc 3, where Zidane discovers himself. That scene is basically my entire first 2 books, where Squall is figuring out who he is while everything else is going on around him, because he is constantly being thrust into leadership positions that he isn't ready for. He thinks he's ready for, but he isn't. So it's not so much a love story as it is a story of not just Squall, but all of them growing up. So I think that's probably,
definitely.
if I put it down to the word, that's the biggest word there, growth.
Good. And I think that I always thought calling it a love story kind of
Diminished everything
diminished all the other characters and their struggles, I think, as well.
Right, because Squall and Renoa is a big part of it, but just as you said, there's so much other stuff going on that, like, the love story is just one part of it. And it's basically just a big epic with all this other stuff going on.
One of my favorite parts of the game was, the end of Disc 1. And your first, draft that you have on your on fan fiction here goes all the way to the end of Disc 1. And one of the favorite things because I'm just always curious as to how that last scene is kind of handled. Because in the game, it feels like a secret agent, spy. Let's sneak in, assassinate Sorceress Adea or Ida, however you want to pronounce her name. And it always kind of plays off this very just kind of cool, epic moment. But I liked in yours, you kind of we see a lot of kind of like doubt. Some things going on inside of Irving's head.
There's a lot more tension created.
Yeah. So what was your kind of thought there? I thought that was actually a really interesting choice.
My biggest thing was that as much as I love the end of Disc 1, as awesome as it is to play, there's that and the garden battle are the 2 highest points of the game for me. But the problem is there's a lot of logical hiccups that I had to address. I had to actually change the parade route because the way the float was facing in the game, Irvin couldn't have made that shot. There's a giant back piece. Like, did nobody think that? But that's always been my personal gripe. I've been complaining about that for years. The way I wanted to handle that last scene, the way I wanted to handle that in those entire last few chapters is I wanted there to be a lot of doubt in both the character's mind and the reader's mind as to who exactly they were working for. Because there is sort of a element of an undertones of like a coup going on within Galbadia, and there are certain people who introduce themselves, and one particular OC who shows up who kind of, maybe isn't necessarily trustworthy. And the entire time you get the idea that, we're just pawns being used by somebody else. And even towards the end, Squall figures that out. He's like, yeah, this is probably going to go to hell, but we're kind of locked into course now. So the biggest thing was I wanted there to be just an idea that we know we're getting screwed, but we still have a mission to do. So that's the way I built tension in the final few chapters there. And of course it leads into a huge payoff within the second book. So.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Good.
Nice. Great way to end it too.
Yeah.
I mean, the ending to the first disc is a really, really great ending. And I can imagine having written it
totally
like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of Irving, do you make any mention of the whole he remembers everybody thing?
I did throw in a scene at when they first meet up where Irvin still, because he hasn't been affected by the GF yet, he's not a seed, he hasn't been using it.
Right.
He does kind of remember them. He's like, wait a minute, don't I know you guys? And they deny it, and he's like, maybe I'm just crazy, but he doubts himself. And then when he's getting ready to assassinate the sorceress, he's like, he actually asks Squall, and got to give credit where it's due. This line I owe to Xander Williams. He gave me the idea, and I'm totally using it because it's exactly what the game needed. Irvin looks to Squall before he's about to shoot, and he's like, don't you realize who that is?
Mm-hmm.
So those
yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah. It made
those
that last bit a little interesting.
Yeah, nice.
It felt like something that could have made the writing even stronger, and I don't know why they didn't do that. I also throw in a chapter where Irvin gets his first GF and is inducted into Seed, so that you know what he's doing with it for the rest of the game. He gets brothers. It's kind of goofy. So
Nice.
I guess then, what was your favorite scene to write? Because there's so many. But you mentioned already that the two high points were the end of the Squan and the Golbadia Garden when they come in and attack and stuff. So, what was your kind of favorite to actually delve into here?
It's hard to choose a favorite scene. I will say my favorite types of scenes to write. I do love my military jargon. I'm an army brat. Mm-hmm. So I do love writing scenes where old curmudgeonly officers are talking to these young idiot cadets and setting them straight. Nice. There's one interaction that I love. I released it as an excerpt recently where Martine is talking in private to Squall and kind of giving him the rundown on the sorceress Adele situation over in Estar. And he's like, we don't know what happened. I think that's a good scene. It kind of sets up the following couple of books and the following couple of discs pretty well. But if I had to narrow it to one scene where I think I did justice, I'll tell you what. I'll give you two. One, there's a scene that isn't in the game which was needed where Renoa talks to General Caraway, her father. And not just the, hey, get over it, I'm just going to leave you in here, yada, yada, yada. No, they actually have a conversation. And Caraway says, look, your head's in the clouds. I'm the head of the Galbadian military. You can't be doing this crap anymore. And he sets her straight. And the thing is, the way I write him and a lot of the Galbadian officers is there's a little bit of ambiguity because what they're saying isn't wrong. They're just going about it the wrong way. I give them a rationale. I don't like just a static villain. I like there to be some reason for why the big bad is doing the big bad thing. And a lot of the guys in the Galbadian army are just kind of, 9-to-5ers anyway. But there's another scene I like, and again, it also involves General Caraway. It's the first Laguna dream sequence, where I have there. If you talk in the game, if you talk to one of the elites in the back of the bar after you've spoken to Julia, he'll say he's pissed off because he wanted to hit on her, and he's I'm going to send you to some far off place so you can never talk to her again. I just decided to make that General Caraway as a younger officer so that it's more like General Caraway actually stole Julia from Laguna.
Wow, nice.
Okay. Whoa.
Nice.
Which also explains karmatically kind of how his family fell apart because, first he loses his wife, who probably hated his guts anyways, and Renoa turned against him. So I think there's nice little poetic justice.
A lot of little threads there that make sense. Yeah, that's good.
Nice. Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was really curious as to how you were going to handle the kind of like dual story because it's one of the more striking and like confusing things to like how old was I when I played this game, like 12 or 13?
Yeah, like 12, and I didn't get it when I was like 15.
Yeah.
So
and I just remember kind of going, who are these guys and why are they carrying all of the same Guardian forces and stuff as my other characters? So what was your kind of approach to handling like the two separate stories with the time jump difference and yeah?
I'm using it the way the game used it for the most part, where Laguna isn't necessarily a lead character. He's not a driving force behind the plot in the timeline of the game itself. It's a past event that informs future events. What happens with his scenes and what happens in the game, this is all the game's original writing, is whatever the plot dictates you need more information on, that's when Laguna shows up. For instance, the first time you meet him, Zell and Squall are talking about the Timber War. Oh, that was a cool thing that happened a long time ago. Then all of a sudden, I'm dreaming about a guy who was fighting in the Timber War. And it also sets up Julia for later because you need to know Renoa's parentage.
Yeah.
And they, by the way, they find that out at the end of disc 1 because they see the painting, which is obviously a painting of Julia. That and the statue and all that good stuff. So I tie those threads up pretty well, but it just opens up more questions. In the second time when it's happening, when you're having the Cedra flashback, that's right before you get the talking to about the Estar War. And that, again, it's all used as just ways to give you a little backstory as to the conflicts that happened before the characters are here. So as far as that goes, I'm using it, again, the way the game uses it. It's a framing device. As far as the gameplay side of it, the mechanics, how can I use your magic? I don't actually do it that often. In fact, I've only done it once in the current book. When Laguna, because of the influence of Elone, having these two souls kind of linked, casts a fireball without even realizing he can do it, burns the Estar guard to death, and is like, holy crap, how can I do that? And that actually sets up some tension because Galbadian soldiers can't use magic. Paramagic isn't a thing at this point. Only Estar has the ability of magic at this time. So his allies start to be like, wait, how can you do that? And they get suspicious of him, and that's when the dream ends. So you have tension going into book 2 when they're not with him anymore.
Nice. Yeah, that's amazing. I like that.
Excellent
That's
job.
really good.
Excellent job setting that up.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
I know Mo Gallagher is your editor. And he's kind of helping you get started here, starting up your Facebook page. You kind of say he's like your mentor in all of this, and he's editing the I guess when it eventually becomes a book series. What kind of influence what advice has Mo given you that is going to help you kind of moving forward?
I call him my literary sugar daddy.
Nice.
He seriously, I mean, this I would not be on the map without this guy. I wrote the thing over the course of like a year, the rough draft of it, and it's very rough, I assure you. And I posted it on fanfiction.net, and I mentioned his name because I'd been reading excerpts of from his unofficial novelization, as well as, again, Xander Williams. And Xander was the guy, by the way, who got me into writing a novelization in the first place. I'd written one of 7 a while ago, which is terrible. Don't read it; it's not worth your time. But he said, you should really do like a good one of 8. And like I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Then I read it over a year, posted up. I mentioned Mo Gallagher's name just briefly in the dedication, and it's like, yo, so I saw your dedication, and starts giving me all kinds of advice, like, hey, set up a Facebook page, you can get readers that way. And I would not be, you wouldn't know who I am without him. So first off, mad thank you to MJ Gallagher.
Oh yeah.
Now as far as writing, he's taught me so much. There's a lot of techniques and stuff that I've learned just by watching him edit my work. If I could boil down the advice I learned from him just by dealing with the guy, it is simply this: when you think you're done, no. Because like, there's always something more you can do to make it better. There's always little tweaks you can do to the story to improve what you've already got. So never never get to like a third draft and be like, I'm good. See what else you can do. And the stuff he's coming with, I can't give any specifics because he asked that I leave kind of like the nitty gritty of it kind of private right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But he's this is going from a passable novelization into gold strictly because of his editing.
Nice.
So again, I can't understate enough what he's doing for it.
Sure.
And that leads to one thing. If I could say one thing to the young writers of the world, constructive criticism is your friend. Constructive criticism, as I put it, it's not a knife in your heart. It is a scalpel in your tumor. It's not saying, hey, this is what's terrible about your work. It's saying, hey, this is the bad part that's distracting from the good. So never take it personally. Don't get upset by it. Use it and thrive from it.
Nice. And that's good for anybody in any kind of creative thing in general, but definitely in writing.
Amen.
It's almost literal because you're chopping out parts that
it's gonna hurt, but it's gonna help in the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
I'm literally having to cut out half of chapter 3 and rewrite it because Mo pointed out that that doesn't work the way you think it does, essentially. But
nice.
Again, it's making it a much better story.
Oh, no,
so yeah, editors.
And just meeting Mo, the few times we have, just like the most gracious, amazing guy.
Oh yeah.
Hilarious and any sort of anyone under his tutelage, definitely, should be paid attention to at this point. So
he's such a super down to earth guy. Like I was so nervous about talking to him because like he's like this giant who's got 2 books out now of novelizations, and his writing is so freaking good. And he's just like, yeah, what's up, bro? I was like, oh, okay, you're a normal person.
Yeah.
So nice,
cool. I think we have one more question.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So our last question for you is then, after you're done with Final Fantasy VIII, after you're done novelizing this, is that the right word? Novelizing. Novelizing. What do you plan to work on after that? Is there something else you'd like to take a crack at novelizing, or just keep working on your own stuff from there?
I imagine I'll have worked up a great deal of original content. I've actually, I've got a very rough draft of a fantasy novel, which I'm in the process of editing right now. But that's going to be a several years of edit, so don't look for that anytime soon. As far as the fan fiction scene, there's other Final Fantasies I'd like to take a crack at, and I even battered around Metal Gear Solid in my head, but I think I would need probably 10 years to even understand that one, so don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I'm just going to keep writing whatever comes to my mind, and whatever I can parlay into something decent, I'll do it.
It's whenever the muse hits you.
Yeah, it hits you at weird times. I've noticed. Last year I started writing a Mario existential crisis fan fiction that I haven't quite finished yet, but it ended up being one of my weirder and more popular pieces. So
an existential crisis for Mario?
Oh, dude, it's a mind trip, and I've had a massive hiatus. I haven't updated it in like 6 months, but basically, it's an existential crisis / a alternate reality type thing. It takes the standard idea of the Mario is all about a guy on drugs thing and kind of flips that narrative on its head, so you really don't know what's going on. Including the author, I wrote myself into a corner, which is why I haven't come back to it yet.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But that sounds like a fun project. I'll actually have to check that one out. But
legit.
Are we? Do we have anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Oh, Micah.
So, Micah, is there anything else you want to say? Anyone else you want to shout out?
Definitely, I got to shout out everybody on my Facebook page right now who has shown me a lot of support. You guys are the reason I do this. Of course, again, shouting out to Xander Williams and MJ Gallagher, and big shout out to Alan Kenny and Alex Main at KupoCon. You guys are awesome. Alan, actually, early on was huge with getting me started as well. So thank you guys as well. And lastly, just in general, anybody who has ever read any of my work, because I've been doing this for 10 years and the early stuff was pretty rough. So if you stuck by me, my thanks. And
no,
of course you guys.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You guys too. Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thank you for being here. We'll put a link to your Facebook page then in the description for the video, so that way people can find you. What is the name for your Facebook page, just so we can have it in the video too?
It's FF8 Fan Novel. Technically, the name of the page is the Final Fantasy VIII Fan Novelization, but it's just /FF8 Fan Novel. So
okay, cool,
excellent.
Yeah, we'll put it in the description for the video so people can find you, and we'll keep reading.
Oh yeah,
because
I'm excited for more.
In all honesty,
let's see how some of my favorite parts play out.
This just makes me want to play Final Fantasy VIII again, but I'm wondering if I should just
wait and see what happens next year.
Yeah, just wait and see what happens next year, or just read his novelization, what he has so far, and just keep waiting for the different parts to be done.
I'll tell you, it's just crazy because they released it on Steam a while ago, and I'm just looking at it like, this is cool, but you have the MIDI songs, and you also have this like magic booster because they know they had a problem with the draw system. So like, this isn't what I need. I need a real remaster, man.
If it got like even the 12 treatment, where like you only fix a couple of little things, that would be perfect.
Yeah, and I'll say it because I say it about everything. Put it on the Switch. You're releasing 7, 9, 10, 10-2, and 12 on the Switch.
A glaring omission.
Give me 8.
Yeah. Throw and my friend Lucretia also pointed out, put Tactics on there too. Because come on.
White Mage. White Mage Wonders, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, she was like, dude, why is there no love for Tactics? I totally agree.
Yeah.
No,
that needs to be on the.
I'm behind you 100%. I love the original Final Fantasy Tactics. That needs more love. I need something. something. Don't give me another advanced game. Give me more tactics.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Or the Lions HD remake on the PS4.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I got chills from that.
Yeah, I know.
But Micah, thank you for being here. We really, really appreciate it, and keep updating us with what you're doing. We'll make sure to share your stuff around, and just again, thank you for being here and being awesome and answering all our questions.
Yeah,
really
it's important to keep contributing to the community, and then the community gives back, right? That's just kind of the way it goes. I saw you were going to be posting possible Patreon in the future as well. Possible.
Yeah, I plan to actually launch that here in October. And I've got stuff lined up for it. I've got a couple of exclusive downloadable files, which will be available to even at the lowest tier, $1. My idea is just to build a base. I'm not looking for a huge amount of money yet. I just want to build a base. So you donate at $1 when I launch the thing, you get everything I got.
Nice.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Bonus.
We'll make sure to share that around
definitely.
too.
Yeah. Let us know when that
Hey,
happens.
I'll give you an exclusive to boot. I'll give you one exclusive that I'm telling you guys first, nowhere else.
Yes.
There might be like 3 in the audience, but anybody who ever read any of my old Shinra Inc. N series, it was a series I did 6 seasons of, like some 6 times 12 is 60 episodes plus a couple of bonus ones. Wrote that for the course of years. I'm actually compiling an updated omnibus of everything that's going to be in a PDF, and that's going to be released as soon as it's done on my Patreon.
Nice.
So I'm telling you guys that first, and anybody who's read that, if you were at KupoCon, it's actually in the first one. It's actually in the record keeper.
Oh yeah,
nice.
I remember that. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was
cool.
awesome. Yeah, everybody
So
was
that's
really
a
impressed. That's why it made it in there. Yeah. I remember Alan. It was Alan, of course. I think was the one who put most of the record
keeper book together.
So
yeah,
excellent.
Oh yeah, so good.
Well, cool. Thank you for that, and hopefully everybody gets really, really excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a 7 fan, so I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, Micah, thank you very much. Keep doing what you do. We love it, and we'll keep following everything you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me, guys. You take it easy.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, click subscribe. Also check below for the links to our Facebook page, Twitter, and blog. Check back often. We're posting new videos weekly.